Welcome again to Market Vision's module on mutual funds. This is Deepak. Should you buy a liquid fund or an ultra short-term mutual fund? Which one of the two? Why one or the other? That's a question a user posed to me after seeing our last short take on the subject. So thought I'd answer it with another short take. As we discussed, the two kinds of funds that we talked about were liquid and ultra short-term debt funds. Liquid funds can hold securities that have a maturity of up to 91 days, and ultra short-term funds include 91 plus days as well. Dividend tax has a differential, so liquid funds pay 25% dividend tax if you're an individual, 30% dividend tax if you're a corporate. Ultra short-term fund pay 15% for everyone, so there's a little bit of an advantage over there. And when it comes to maturity, what you need to do is check, because certain ultra short-term funds many times consistently maintain a portfolio of less than 91 days, sometimes as little as 15 or 20 days. They have the ability to move to 91 plus. They don't always do so. Sometimes they don't do so by choice, and there's a little bit of an advantage because you get the 15% lower dividend tax in those cases. Now there is another difference. It's called the NAV Cut-off Times. Especially for ultra short-term funds, the concept is every mutual fund has a cut-off time every day. So if you give them money before that cut-off time, usually it's 3 p.m., you get the end of today's NAV. That means the NAV calculated at the end of today's trading day is what is assigned to you. You start earning interest from the next trading day, which is tomorrow in this case. Liquid funds, on the other hand, if you give your money before 2 p.m., this is weird, and this is weird because there's a lot of history behind it, but before 2 p.m. you get yesterday's NAV. The idea being that people can get the money before 2 p.m. They can actually invest it in the liquid markets, get interest for today's trading day as well, so they pass on that interest facility to you. So you get yesterday evening's NAV and you start earning interest immediately, literally. After 2 p.m. you get today's NAV, and the actual term is previous business days NAV. The idea is after 2 p.m. they can't invest, therefore they can only see the money tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning they will give you the previous business days net asset value, that is end of today's net asset value. If there's a holiday, obviously that's the reason it's called a business day, so they just skip the holidays in the middle. There's a slight advantage if you're able to get in your money before 2 p.m. because you earn interest of 1 day as well. This probably doesn't apply to you if you don't have 50, 100 crores or something like that, because putting in even on lakh rupees for a single day probably earns as much as you would spend on the internet for just viewing the short take. So honestly, it probably doesn't make a difference at the very small level. It makes a huge difference at the large level. The other question now is, would you choose liquid or would you choose ultra short term? So if you have the two funds, the liquid fund obviously has a closer maturity, so it gives a slight sense of security that within 90 days at least these guys will do something. But honestly, the risk remain on the portfolio itself. Even something like Enron, for instance, was a big company. It lost all its money literally overnight, and even liquid funds at that time which had invested in Enron, remember it was rated AAA for the longest time, they would have lost money. So there is a risk in both liquid and ultra short term. The number of days left to maturity sometimes gives a little bit of a comfort factor, but as I mentioned, sometimes liquid funds have a longer maturity than the ultra short term just by implementation. There is a higher dividend tax for liquid funds, so it may be more useful to go for ultra short term, especially if you're a corporate. And you can get yesterday's NAV, which is good for large money transfers, large money owners, people who own 100 crores, 200 crores, corporates with large amounts of money that they want to rotate. They get one extra day's NAV, which can be significant. In an ultra short term, you can only get today's net asset value. When I say today, it means whichever day you invest, obviously. Now, if you're a retail individual, your ultra short term plan might work better for you. This is an alternative to both a savings account and a fixed deposit, and you would probably want to choose a dividend option if you need to rotate the money soon. So for instance, if you're used to putting just about 50,000 rupees as extra savings, and you kind of spend it towards the end of the month, you probably want to retain that in your savings account. But if you have 50,000 rupees as savings that you don't kind of touch on often, but you tend to use up every 3 months or so, What you want to do is go in for a dividend option. It gives you the money back as dividend. Only 15% is paid as tax. It's better than putting it into a savings account which earns only 4%, or a fixed deposit which earns about 8 or 7 or 8%, but the interest is fully taxed. In this case, you get your 8%, you pay a little bit lesser tax, it's only 15% tax, and you also get the money back whenever you want it, unlike a fixed deposit where you pay a penalty. But if you're like most people, what they do is they just keep their money in their savings account, large amounts, 3-4 lakhs, just sitting there for comfort. But that just earns 4%. That doesn't do much. So if you're going to keep that money there for a longer time, you might as well buy a growth option of an ultra short term plan. The idea is if you keep that money there for more than a year, you start earning money tax free because of inflation indexation. I spoke about that in the last lesson. The idea is if you're a retail individual here, ultra short term plans probably work better for you. But if you're a corporate and you have big amounts of money that's rotated around quite often, which is typically the case, especially in a retail kind of a setup, you would want to choose a liquid fund it's better than a current account, because current account earns no interest. And one thing that's useful is you get interest over a weekend. So you could put the money in on a Friday, say before 2 p.m. just transfer the money, take out the money on Monday morning, and you get interest for 2 or 3 days. Even here, a few crores makes a huge difference. So that's about liquid versus ultra short term funds. Love to hear your comments. Email us, visit us at marketvision.in, visit our forums, and as usual, thanks for listening.